Tarangire Reserve, late morning. A young elephant calf stood beside the lifeless bulk of its mother. Her great body collapsed in the ochre dust, unmoving. The calf's ears hung low, not from sleep or calm, but weight. Heat rippled across the cracked soil, baking the air into stillness. The mother's tusks glinted faintly beneath a layer of dust. Her skin, once taut and swaying with breath, now looked folded and cold. The calf didn't understand it fully, not in the way humans would, but it knew something had gone wrong. Its trunk was curled tightly against the creased belly, tucked as close as it could press without waking her. And still, she didn't rise. There were no other elephants nearby. No siblings, no matriarch stepping in, just silence and sun. The calf, no taller than a ranger's chest, shifted once, a small, uncertain movement, then settled again beside the only scent it trusted. A low huff escaped from its throat, soft and gravelly, the kind of sound calves made when hungry or lost, but it didn't walk away. Its body leaned gently against the mother's ribs, as if touch might change something, as if presence might return breath. Even as insects gathered at the creases of her eyes and vultures landed a few meters away, the calf stayed still. A ranger named Elias spotted them from a southern track, his binoculars catching the shape of the unmoving body first. He guided the vehicle slowly, stopping at a distance and stepping out on foot. The wind brought him the thick scent of heat and animal. Not decay, not yet, but the stillness before it. He walked with care, his boots leaving shallow impressions in the sun-hardened dirt. The closer he came, the more it became clear. The calf wasn't injured. Not visibly, but it hadn't moved in a long time. The mother's body had collapsed near an old wallow, dry now, its edges caked and fractured. There were signs of a struggle, deep half-moons carved into the ground. One front leg was swollen. Elias crouched low and whispered, not to be heard, just to soften the air. "Poor girl," he murmured, eyes on the body. "She went down hard." A moment passed. Then, without looking away, he lifted his radio. A soft click. Calf found. Alone. Likely orphaned. No herd in sight, no threat yet, but vultures circling. The calf finally looked at him. Not with fear, but with something duller. Exhaustion. It blinked slowly and turned back to the body, trunk brushing once more across the curve of the mother's side. Elias didn't move closer. He knew the boundary of grief when he saw it, even in a calf barely weaned. If he approached too fast, it might bolt. If it ran too far, too soon, it could die. If he waited too long, predators would come. Nothing about this was safe. He backed away and waited beneath the shade of a nearby acacia. The calf didn't follow. It didn't call out. Just remained pressed to the unmoving shape, dust clinging to the soft folds behind its ears. The vultures stepped a little closer. One let out a soft hiss. Elias picked up a small stone and tossed it wide, not toward the birds, just near enough to shift their attention. They scattered, but they'd be back. The hours passed. The heat deepened. Elias drank in silence, watching the calf lean again and again into the side of the body. Once, it nudged its forehead, like it might have done when asking for milk. The body didn't respond. A soft sound came from the calf's throat, part whimper, part breath. It stayed that way for hours, unmoving but alive, refusing every signal to let go. If it walked off alone, it would not last more than 2 nights. If it stayed here, predators would find it before the herd ever returned. Elias knew what had to happen, but he also knew this: nothing could begin until the calf chose to move. And for now, it has not. The sun bent low, casting long shadows over the empty wallow. The calf curled its trunk once more around its mother's tusk, and in that stillness, with dust drifting softly around them, everything waited. Elias returned on foot just after dawn. The sky above Tarangire Reserve was washed in pale orange, the earth still cool underfoot. The calf had not moved. It stood in the exact place it had the evening before, its small body leaning once more into the curve of the fallen adult. A fine layer of dust clung to its back. One ear flicked at a fly, but otherwise it was still. No sleep, no steps, just waiting. The mother's body had begun to change. Her side was bloated now, the natural process starting beneath the hide. Elias took note of the signs without judgment. He'd seen enough deaths to recognize timing. This had not happened long ago, maybe 2 days, maybe less. Long enough for the calf to lose direction, but not yet hope. He stepped forward slowly, letting his boots press into the soil with weight, not sneaking, not hiding, just showing himself, steady and visible. The calf turned its head slightly, eyes narrowing. Then, without warning, it made a sound, a short, low trumpet, thin and cracked. Not loud enough to startle, but enough to hold ground. Elias paused. The calf didn't run, didn't charge. It held its place beside the body, the trunk now draped along the ridge of her side. A calf that small, barely weaned, shouldn't have been alone this long, and yet it stayed, not out of strength, out of refusal. Elias crouched 10 meters away. He carried no food, no rope, nothing that might shift the balance too fast, just a water canteen and a light scarf tucked at his collar. The vultures had returned before dawn but had kept their distance. Now one circled overhead again. The calf flinched at the shadow, ears flaring briefly, then folding again. Elias waited until the shadow passed before speaking. "Still with her," he said softly. His voice didn't reach the calf, not truly. It wasn't meant to. It was meant for the space between them, to fill it with calm. If he stepped closer now, the calf might bolt. If it fled blindly, deeper into lion territory or away from the waterline, it would not make it through the night. If it stayed rooted for too long, dehydration would set in fast. Every hour mattered. He stayed crouched for a long time, watching. The calf occasionally shifted its weight, nudged gently at the unmoving side, or flared its ears at small sounds in the brush. But it never moved more than a few inches. The bond was visible in every movement. The mother had likely collapsed suddenly. A fracture, internal wound. The herd had moved on. The calf had stayed. By mid-morning, Elias stood and walked a slow circle around the site, not closing in, just marking the distance. Every few steps he paused, letting the calf track him. He didn't make eye contact, didn't reach out. At one point, the calf let out another sound. Not a trumpet this time, but something softer, like a long exhale through its trunk. It didn't step back. It didn't turn to run. Just watched him, head low. If the calf bolted into the bush, he would lose sight of it in seconds. If he tried to lead it too soon, it would resist. But if it stayed near the body another day, it might collapse too. That was the risk. That was the balance. Intervention had to be timed with trust. He returned to his shaded spot and sat again, waiting like the calf, not pushing, not assuming, just there. That was all he could do. Let it see him again. Let it learn the shape of a man who meant no harm. The sun rose higher. The vultures shifted from the tree to the ground, then back again. The mother's form remained still, but beside her the calf leaned once more into her side. Not asleep, not resting, just there, the one who waited. And Elias, across the dust, did the same. By late morning, the other rangers had arrived. 3 in total, approaching on foot from the north with measured steps, their movements practiced and quiet. Elias met them halfway between the brush line and the clearing. No raised voices, no quick gestures, just a soft exchange of information beneath the heat. The calf hadn't moved more than a few feet since sunrise. Its body sagged slightly now, knees locking for balance, trunk coiled along the ground like it no longer knew what to search for. But it remained by her. They'd seen it before, calves standing vigil for hours, sometimes days, but rarely this young, and rarely with such unwavering stillness. The plan was simple. Approach slowly in a line, give space, and use soft vocal cues and scent to encourage the calf away. If it moved even a few meters, they could begin hydration, begin help. But the moment had to be chosen. Gently. Elias nodded once and stepped forward first. The others spread out slightly behind. The wind shifted, bringing the faint scent of their sweat and canvas toward the calf. It lifted its head slowly, ears twitching but not flared. When Elias reached the halfway mark, he paused and lowered his hand to the dust. No sudden movement, just presence. "Let's go slow," he said quietly, more to the calf than to anyone else. They moved again. The calf gave one uncertain step backward, not away from them, but toward the mother's body. Its feet dragged slightly in the dust. Then it pressed its forehead hard into the mother's ribs, eyes closing. Its whole frame seemed to deflate against her. It wasn't resisting. It was refusing. Elias stopped. So did the others. For a long moment, nothing moved. Not even the vultures. The calf opened its eyes again and pulled its trunk over the ridge of her side. The gesture was instinctive, like a calf reaching to nurse. But there was nothing left to find. "She's not letting go," one of the rangers whispered. "If we force it now, she'll run," Elias answered. "Or panic. We will lose her either way." That was the line, not marked by fences or tools, but drawn in the dust by a calf who still believed the body might rise. If they crossed it too soon, the calf might bolt, straight into the thorn scrub or toward the riverbank cliffs. If they waited too long, dehydration would take hold. They stepped back together, as one. The calf watched but didn't shift. The moment held. Elias circled wide again, not directly approaching, just pacing the perimeter. He dropped a small cloth soaked in water a few meters from the calf, careful to make the gesture quiet. The scent might draw her in later. If not today, then after nightfall. But not yet. By noon, the air grew heavier. The body began to swell further. The signs were clear. This would not remain a clean sight by morning. Something would change soon. The vultures knew it too. They returned to the edges, talons clicking on dry rock. The calf gave a tired trumpet in their presence, not defiance, just noise. Elias sat again under the same acacia as the day before. The others joined him in silence. None of them removed their packs. No one spoke of what came next. Across the clearing, the calf lay down, not in surrender, but in contact. Its entire side pressed flush against the mother's ribcage. Its trunk curled into the hollow beneath her shoulder. And there, with eyes half closed and body heaving softly with breath, it drew its line in the sand. It would not follow them. Not today, not yet. Dusk came without relief. The air cooled, but the silence thickened, stretched wide across the clearing. Shadows from the trees lengthened into the open space where the calf still lay, half curled beside the body. Its breathing had slowed, but it remained awake, trunk slung over one of the mother's tusks, ears still and low. It hadn't risen since midday. I hadn't drunk, hadn't turned its head. Just wait. Elias gathered a small pile of dried brush and lit a slow fire 20 meters from the calf. The other rangers mirrored the act on the opposite side, forming a perimeter of soft, flickering light. No movement was made toward the animal itself. The fires weren't for comfort. They were a message. Already, faint shapes had begun to gather at the brush line, low to the ground, deliberate, watching. Hyenas. Their eyes glinted amber as the sun finally dropped below the hills. At first, only two. then 4, then more. They didn't move closer, but they didn't leave. They weren't in a hurry. They knew the rhythm of this kind of waiting. The body would shift. The calf would tire, and they would still be here. Elias stood near the largest fire, one hand resting on a shovel handle driven into the ground. He didn't speak. Neither did the others. In the distance, one of the hyenas let out a soft, throaty whoop. It wasn't a threat, just a marker. "We are here." The calf didn't react. That was the danger now. Not just dehydration, but failure of movement. In the wild, calves survived by motion, by staying with the herd, by following legs and trunks and scent trails. Stillness was not natural. It was a kind of collapse, even before the body gave out. If the calf stayed there through the night, unmoving, it would grow weaker. Too weak to run, too weak to follow, even if help arrived. The scent of the body had changed again. The air near it hung heavier now, sweet and wrong. The hyenas inched closer, never straight on, always in loops and broken lines as if testing invisible boundaries. The fires pushed them back for now. The calf lifted its head briefly at the sound of a snapping branch. Its trunk uncurled, swung loosely, then dropped again over the tusk. It made no sound. Elias watched its ribs rise and fall, shallow, slow. No sign of sleep. Just survival. They added more brush to the fire. Dry twigs cracked in quick bursts, sending a brief flare upward. The light pushed the shadows back, but only at the edges. The hyenas would return as soon as it dimmed again. If the calf didn't rise by morning, it might not rise at all. They'd radioed for a mobile vet team, but even moving the calf would take trust it hadn't offered yet. A calf that small couldn't be sedated easily. Too light for full tranquilization. Too heavy to carry without resistance. Everything depended on timing, and the timing was not right yet. Elias sat on the earth, elbows resting on his knees. He kept his eyes on the calf but didn't call it, didn't urge it up. He'd done that once and it had pressed itself harder into the body. Refusing wasn't aggression, it was grief. Night deepened, the fires burned low. Somewhere in the distance a hyena gave a single bark, closer this time. The rangers stood again, adding fresh wood. The clearing filled with smoke and ember light, but the calf didn't stir. Its trunk remained draped over the mother's tusk, not in desperation now, but ritual. Stillness became a kind of language, a way to hold on, and in that stillness, surrounded by shadows and flame, the line between danger and memory thinned. The calf had not moved, but the world around it had, and the clock was ticking. The first light broke along the eastern ridge in a narrow line, cutting through the acacia shadows. The fires had burned low, now mostly embers. Elias rose stiffly from where he'd sat through the night. The calf was still beside the mother's body, though its posture had changed. Not collapsed, not risen, just different, its head lower, ears folded back, trunk curled inward toward its own chest. The quiet of exhaustion. Then the ground gave a low, almost imperceptible shiver. Elias turned his head. It came again, a tremble through the soil, faint but rhythmic. Not wind, not a predator. Something heavier, measured, familiar. He stepped forward, peering east through the low haze of dust and dawn. At the edge of the clearing, just beyond the final line of brush, a shape emerged. Then another. Wide backs, tusks, slow movement. Elephants. A full herd. No sound, no trumpets, just movement. 7 in total, their gait calm, deliberate. The matriarch led, her ears broad and steady, eyes scanning the space not for threat, but something else. The rest followed in a loose formation, young bulls, calves, a second older female. Their pace never changed. Elias stepped aside. The herd entered the clearing in a slow arc, careful not to startle, careful not to crowd. The matriarch stopped 10 meters from the calf and waited. Her body stilled. Her trunk hung low, not searching, not reaching, just still. The calf did not rise, but it opened its eyes. For the first time since yesterday, its head lifted slightly. The smell had changed. Not fire, not death, herd. It blinked once and turned slightly toward the new arrivals. The matriarch did not move. She didn't call out or reach forward. She simply stood, her great head tilted faintly to one side, as if listening to something that hadn't yet been spoken. Behind her, the youngest member of the herd, not much older than the grieving calf, stepped forward. It paused midway, then lowered its trunk to sniff the soil, drawing in the scent that hung heavy in the clearing. The others remained in place, creating a quiet perimeter of presence, not pressure. The matriarch finally shifted. She took one step closer, then another, now 5 meters away. Still no sound, still no urgency, just nearness. She lowered her trunk, touched the ground once, and held it there, a gesture that meant nothing and everything. The calf lifted its head fully now, its trunk falling away from the mother's tusk. It turned slightly but did not rise. Its body was trembling, subtle and uneven. The matriarch waited. Elias watched from the edge. No words, no movement. Nothing to break the rhythm. If the calf did not stand now, the herd might move on. If it tries too soon, its legs might buckle. But something had shifted. Presence alone was not a cure, but it was a call. The matriarch stepped once more, now within 3 meters. Her trunk rose and hovered above the calf, not touching, not forcing, just letting the scent pass between them. Her eyes remained on the calf's body. Then, gently, she exhaled a low rumble. Not a warning, a whisper. The calf twitched. One leg moved, its ears fluttered once, unsure. Then it leaned forward, not away from the mother's body, but toward the herd. No one rushed, no one advanced. They simply stood. They waited. The sun edged higher through the haze. Dust floated in soft spirals. And in that breathless morning light, a grieving calf began to turn its head toward the living. The light grew fuller across the valley, turning the dust gold and the trees pale in silhouette. The calf stood halfway between the past and the present, its body still brushing the mother's side, but its head turned toward the herd that now waited without sound. It didn't step forward. It didn't flee. It simply watched, and that, for now, was enough. The matriarch moved first. She stepped with deliberate calm, her great frame making no more noise than the wind moving through the brush. She stopped beside the calf and lowered her head until her trunk hovered just above the small one's ears. Then, with exquisite gentleness, she touched the calf's head, a slow stroke from crown to cheek. The calf shivered but didn't pull away. Then the matriarch turned. She reached down to the mother's still body and touched her spine with the same quiet care. Not a push, not a nudge. A single, silent pass. The gesture had no force behind it, only recognition. One life had ended, another had not. The calf lowered its head. A younger female stepped forward next. She paused beside the matriarch, waited a beat, then approached. Her steps mirrored the same calm, the same stillness. She brushed her trunk along the calf's shoulder, then gently across the mother's flank, and stepped back. Another came, then another. Each one passed close, never crowding. Each one laid a soft touch, first to the calf, then to the mother. No calls, no vocalizations. Just the soft huff of breath and the shifting of weight. It was not a ceremony, not in the human sense, but it was not random either. It was a ritual of remembering, and of calling forward. The calf shifted. Its front leg moved back slightly, its body no longer pressed into the mother's. It didn't cry, didn't fall, just remained upright, trembling slightly now, as if the contact had stirred something buried beneath the silence. Elias watched from the brush's edge. He hadn't moved since dawn. Every part of him held still, breath shallow, boots anchored in the dust. What unfolded before him wasn't for interference. This moment wasn't his to touch. A younger bull came last. He did not approach the mother. He moved straight to the calf and stopped a meter away. He lowered his trunk, not to touch, but to wait. His presence was heavy, but not unkind. The calf turned toward him and blinked slowly. There was no play, no welcome, just a space offered, a place in the line of the living. The matriarch stepped away now, toward the open side of the clearing. She turned her broad frame just enough that the path beyond her could be seen, not leading, not demanding, but open. The calf didn't move, but it no longer leaned against the mother's body. Its trunk curled toward its chest, then down toward the earth, dragging faint lines in the dust. Its shoulders sagged, not in defeat, but fatigue. Still, it stood. If the calf followed now, it might survive. If it collapses again, the moment might pass. The herd began to shift. Not away, not forward. Just rearranging, creating space behind the matriarch, leaving a place in the rhythm of their movement for one more to join. The calf stepped forward. One small shaky movement, and the herd waited. The air was still when the matriarch returned. The others had drifted a few meters away, forming a quiet half-circle near the brush line. Their bodies moved in rhythm with one another, but not forward. Not yet. They waited. The calf remained behind, its feet planted, ribs rising in shallow pulls of breath. It had stepped away from the mother once, then stopped. Its eyes stayed fixed on the body, not to reclaim it, but unable, still, to release it fully. Grief in elephants did not leave with noise. It left with time, and time here was nearly gone. The matriarch approached again. This time she did not stop beside the calf. She passed him gently, her large body brushing his shoulder with a breath of contact. Then she stepped to the side of the mother's body and paused. Elias, watching from his place beyond the fire's ash ring, didn't move. His radio had long gone quiet. There was nothing to report that words could carry properly. The decision unfolding now did not belong to him. The matriarch stood over the fallen elephant for a long moment, her frame still in the sun. Then she lowered her head. Slowly, with deliberate weight, she pressed her forehead to the mother's side. Just once. A touch that held no urgency, no push, no claim. Just presence. She lifted her head and turned. With a slow arc, she walked back toward the clearing's edge, joining the others without pause. Her steps were heavy but not burdened. The gesture had been made, the invitation given. The calf stood alone now. Dust clung to the folds behind its ears. Its legs trembled beneath its weight. It had not been eaten. It was not drunk. Still, it remained upright. And then it turned its head toward the herd. A long breath left its trunk, broken and uneven. Then one front foot lifted. A pause, then set forward. The back legs followed with a small stagger. The calf turned fully from the body. It did not rush. There was no collapse of grief, no sudden sprint, just a slow, deliberate separation, as if it feared the tether might still pull tight if it moved too fast. But nothing held. Nothing called it back. Step by step, it walked toward the herd. Elias swallowed and lowered his eyes for a moment. The fire near him crackled, but he didn't feed it. There was no longer a need for a warning light. What had circled in the dark would not return now. The herd made space. One of the younger females stepped slightly to the side. The calf entered their rhythm quietly, body brushing gently against the nearest leg. No trumpet sounded, no celebratory rumble. Just a silence that held everything. From the clearing, the mother's body remained, the dust settling around her. The calf looked back once, then lowered its head and kept walking. Weeks passed. Rain came once, briefly, softening the hard lines of the reserve and turning the low grass pale green again. The fires were gone. So were the vultures. Life moved through Tarangir as it always had, slowly, steadily, without pause for what had been left behind. The calf survived. It traveled now within the rhythm of the herd, never straying far from the matriarch. Thin, still, ribs marked in soft shadows beneath its skin, but upright, alive. It walked with a cautious, deliberate pace, the steps of an animal learning again how to move without waiting. It didn't play. It didn't call, but it followed. And that was enough. When they drank from shallow pools near the river edge, the calf lingered last, only moving when nudged gently by an older sibling or a shifting foot. When they rested beneath the baobabs, it stood longer before lying down, unsure if sleep would mean waking alone again. The matriarch watched, never intrusive. But always close. She did not lead it by force. She led by standing still when it needed to stop. The rangers spotted them every few days, far off in tall grass or across the dry plain, always together. Elias marked each sighting quietly in his logbook. Calf with herd. No separation, no distress. Status, holding. Then, one overcast morning, Elias returned to the clearing. He came alone, on foot, carrying nothing but a field pouch and a folded square of canvas. The body was gone now. Carried off by scavengers, scattered by wind and weeks of silence. Only bones remained, smoothed by time, arranged in soft collapse near the dry wallow. Even those would vanish soon. He walked slowly, not out of reverence but memory. The clearing was smaller than he remembered. The trees felt closer. The air is lighter. Yet the place held its weight. Near where the fires had once burned, a faint depression marked the soil. Footprints, mostly faded, but still visible if you knew where to look. He crouched near the largest, elephant, adults, deep, likely the matriarch's, and beside it, smaller, oval, uneven at the edges. A trunk print, not pressed in movement, but in stillness. As if the calf had stood here again, days or weeks after the herd had passed. As if it had returned, just once to place its trunk where it had known the body to be. Elias didn't speak. There was nothing to say. He remained for a while, not long, the kind of visit made for the animal, not the man. Then he stood, brushed the dust from his knees and left the site as it was. No stone, no marker, only the hollow in the earth where memory had settled. The herd moved on, the calf with them. A quiet figure walking beneath the shade of elders, smaller than the rest but no longer alone. And in the clearing, wind stirred the dust. The imprint remained, soft and shallow, the shape of a young trunk, pressed once into the earth and never erased.